Hey man, how is it going? Thank you so much for joining me again for another episode of Hands Like Hide. I just bumped my microphone. I got this rug that's underneath my desk that I'm sitting at, and like if I move my feet just right, the microphone does this weird like shimmy thing, and so I hope it's hope it's good to go. But hey, we're okay. Well, I hope you had a good week. I had an interesting week. Maybe we'll get into some of that today in this podcast. In fact, I know we're going to get into some of that this podcast. But firstly, I want to thank you for being loyal. I want to thank you for sticking it out with me. This is our 10th episode on Hands Like Hide, and I hope that if you've been following along and you've been listening to them all, that you are being impacted by this content, and I'm just really, really excited about that. I have a goal over the next 90 days to reach 100 downloads. So, I mean, we're on Apple, Spotify. We got a YouTube channel. You guys obviously know you can find me at Hands Like Hide on Instagram. So I just have a huge request for you, and that is please share it. Please like, please subscribe, put a 5-star review wherever you get this content, because it really helps generate the algorithms. It helps boost it up in people's search engines when they're looking for different things. If you have suggestions on how to, use like hashtags or keywords for titles, hit me up. I think I'm very open to all kinds of different suggestions as I'm working on growing this platform. Excuse me. And I just really appreciate all the feedback that I have gotten so far. And it's just really, really helpful. So again, like, subscribe, share it, leave a review, and just, help me, if you would, reach that 100 download mark. I think that would be pretty cool in the next 90 days. Today, though, let's talk about the concept. In my introduction, there's a phrase that I have in there that says, because every job teaches. And that's really intentional. And I think that in our leadership as men and as, guys in the field doing what we do, we have a job to do. We get up, we go to work, and we do our job. But within that job, there are multiple angles and multiple things that take place, instances, circumstances, conversations, the good, the bad, the ugly, for lack of a better term, points of confrontation, points of conflict, super wins, right? You bid a job at X amount of dollars, and then you come in like way under that bid to complete it, and you ended up that you have a lot more margin than you initially thought, right? And then the other side of that thing is you bid a job for X amount of dollars, and you're way over by 2 or 3 times. I'll never forget when I was 19 years old, I was helping my dad do some flooring, and he was a flooring contractor for a lot of years. That was actually my first job. When I was 12, he hired me for $20 a week to be his helper. And so we would go to all kinds of different places in people's homes and install carpet. Mainly it was carpet at that time, but it eventually transitioned into hardwood and then tile flooring, some linoleum or laminate, some people call it. So just through the course of like kind of growing up through my teen years, knowing how to do flooring, one of my biggest takeaways, I guess, of what I learned the most out of that job is that I don't want to do flooring. I don't like that job at all, man. I can do it. I know how to do it, but I don't get much joy out of it. It's like I begrudgingly do flooring work if I have to, because I don't know, man. Being in people's homes, like with your head in their closet, putting carpet in the closet of their bedroom, and then like having their garments, like on your head and on your shoulders. Man, I just couldn't get down with that. Or like moving furniture. We do these jobs. It's like we got to move all the furniture out, and like some of these people's dressers are so heavy you can't move them, and so you have to pull the drawers out and move the drawers out of the way, and then move the furniture. And the things you see in people's dresser drawers, they should take care of that on their own. Maybe we should just leave it at that. But oh man, we'll go a little bit off topic here. But this one job we did, I got in so much trouble. I was probably like 14 years old, and we're doing this carpet job in this dude's basement, and he had a collection of Playboy magazines that went back, I mean, decades long. He had a bookshelf that was just lined up, volume to volume to volume, the whole way lined up. And in my wounded, addicted 14-year-old brain. Obviously, I'm not thinking clearly anyway. I'm 14 years old. What 14-year-old dude is thinking clearly, right? But I'm like, my dad wasn't looking. Nobody was looking. I was like, I just grabbed a Playboy off the magazine and randomly grabbed it, and I ripped out a page, folded it up, and put it in my pocket. And then I took the magazine and threw it behind a door. I just like, oh, and in my head, I'm like, he's never going to find it there. I mean, long story short, did I get in trouble? My dad got in trouble. Obviously, the homeowner found this magazine and realized what happened and called the company we were working for. My dad got reamed out. And then, of course, I got reamed out. And, oh my goodness, I will never forget how embarrassed and shamed and just like guilty I felt. I mean, talk about feeling so small that you just wish you could crawl into a rock and die, right? That was me in that moment. And I wish I could say that was the end of my, unwanted sexual behavior addiction. But no, that was just the very beginning. That was just the very beginning of it. But that's how that stuff goes sometimes. You start with these little seemingly, not so innocent, but just, stupid things that kids do. And then it can really turn into something that can wreck your life. But so back to how can every job teach? That's what we're going to talk about. Every job teaches. And a few weeks ago, I've been working with a situation, and there's an individual in my life where I've been noticing there's a pattern taking place. There's a pattern taking place in like lapses of awareness and judgment. And so it makes it really challenging. Like the first time it happened, I could forgive it, whatever. Second time, whatever. Third time, it starts getting a little bit more frustrating. But here we are as we're going along. This pattern in lapses of judgment and concentration, is continuing to the point now where there's broken trust. Okay? And it's beginning to kind of bring up in me a lot of like negative, frustrating emotions that I'm trying to kind of work through. And last week I was processing this with my wife a little bit. And I'm talking to her about the situation. I'm talking to her about how it's making me feel. And I'm talking to her like how should I address it? And do I even have a right to feel this way? And we're just in the kitchen. She's washing dishes, and I'm standing next to the sink, and I'm just like, I'm just like blowing off all this steam. And she got this look on her face that was like she was reading my mail. I mean, the look on her face was like that. It's like when somebody tells you that. And this is a true story. It's like when somebody tells you that they can't support drug use because of the chemicals that they're putting in someone's body while they're putting a dip of chewing tobacco in their lip. Like, that's a true story. I had a guy do that with me once. He's like smacking his can. He's like, I cannot just get on board with these guys who do these drugs and put them chemicals in their body. That's just going to kill him. And he just puts this big lip in his lip. And then I'm like, I mean, what do you do in that moment? Well, my wife, the blind spots, right? Huge blind spots. So my wife was getting this look on her face. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So, and I just kind of stopped talking for a second. And the key word we're going to be talking about some today is reflective. So I just started, reflecting on what I was saying, how I was feeling, and, sort of my own history of behaviors. And I'm just thinking about this stuff, and I'm like, so I'm guessing that the way I'm talking right now about this situation and the way I'm processing these emotions, you've felt that, but coming from me, like the roles are reversed, right? And she just kind of humped. She was just like, you can take it however you need to take it. That's what she said. And that's one of the amazing things about my wife is and it's not just my wife. Like the truth is, all, as men, God created men and women differently, right? And so wives have this really unique ability to intuitively see things in us that we can't see in ourselves. And if we're open and sensitive to them, like there's a wealth of knowledge and opportunities to grow our characters by watching and observing and being open-minded to the feedback that our wives are giving us, right? And so reflecting on that feedback is really key. So as I was kind of reflecting on this situation, and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I wonder, have I ever made my wife feel confusion, self-doubt, anger, sadness, fear? Because those are all like the emotions I was feeling. Well, the obvious answer is, of course I have. I mean, yes, hard yes. And so every job teaches, because what that moment gave me was, instead of like focusing all this negative energy and all this frustrations on, this other situation, it helped me. It was like a mirror, right, yo? It was like a mirror. It helped me see, what am I doing in my life that I could be potentially causing other people to fear, confusion, self-doubt, fear, all of these things. This isn't a new concept. This goes way back to the Gospel of Luke. Gospel of Luke talks about this. In chapter 4, Jesus is talking to some people, as he always does. And he first begins by saying, "For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and it is not able to finish the tower, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" Right? So Jesus is talking about the idea of like considering, reflecting, weighing the outcomes. And he goes on to say after that in verse 31, "Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able?" Okay, so I'm working through this book right now. It's by John Eldredge. If you haven't had a chance to really like read some of his materials, I highly recommend it. And he has this quote that goes kind of hand in hand with what Jesus is talking about here in Luke. He says, "An unreflective man is a dangerous man." Think about that. An unreflective man is a dangerous man. He's dangerous to himself and to his own side. So as a man, as a leader, you have a side, your own side. It is the things that you are responsible for leading and protecting and guiding and nurturing as a man. It starts with your wife, it starts with you, your children, and then others, your crew, your company, your neighborhood, your ministry, if you're a pastor or involved with any kind of church ministry. That's your own side. How is an unreflective man a danger to himself and his own side? Well, if we don't learn from our mistakes, we're doomed to repeat them, right? You're doomed to repeat these things. And that's where every job teaches. Because in every job, you have the opportunity to reflect on it, and you can learn something about yourself and about the things that are your own, so that you can lead better and you can grow better. I was often told this growing up as a kid. Let's go back to when I was a kid, helping my dad put stuff in customers' homes, flooring and all that such. I was notorious for breaking stuff. I mean, notorious. If it could be broken, and it got broken, and I was anywhere near it, automatically Charlie broke it, whether I touched it or not. Because like that was just, I don't know, man. I was strong. I don't know. I've always worn glasses. My vision hasn't been the best sometimes. Depth perception was way off when I was a kid. Like, if it could be broken, it was broken by me. And my dad had this saying that he often threw my direction: "Charlie, you're just like a bull in a china shop. You're just a bull in a china shop." And I didn't understand it at first as a kid. I was like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" And, a bull in a china shop, China China is fragile. You know, it's crystal, it's glass, it's dainty, it's thin, it's elegant. In some instances, it's irreplaceable. And yeah, you put a bull in a china shop and stuff's going to get broke. That's what I'm saying. Stuff's going to get broke. And I want to apply that, though, more to like a metaphorical speaking. If you are a man and a leader who is not reflecting, you're not reflecting on how you're impacting others. You're not reflecting on what can I learn about this job or this situation or this encounter with a person, then you're a bull in a china shop. But instead of the china being plates and bowls and dishes and cups, the china is trust. People's feelings, people's emotions. Trust. Trust, my friend, is one of the greatest gifts that anybody can give you. If you have somebody's trust, you have one of the greatest gifts you can get. And trust is easily broken. You know, maybe not the first time something bad happens. Like, yeah, it can wound it, it can damage it. But let's get a pattern of breaking trust, a pattern of behaviors that wound and injure trust. Eventually, that trust is going to go away. You've broken that trust. It is fragile. And the rebuilding process to put that trust back together, I can tell you, is a long, painful, difficult process. And sometimes, in some situations, the hard truth is that you never get it back. You can never get it back. There are some situations where the trust is so broken that you have to live with that the rest of your life. You got to live with that the rest of your life. And that's a hard place to be. How do we learn from everyday experiences? How do we approach life where every job teaches? Well, couple things. What I've found in my own life is to journal. Pay attention to small things. Like, there's lessons in the mundane of every life. When you get the end of your day or the end of your work shift and you're sitting in your truck before you come home from work and you're just sitting there reflecting, just think about what moment is stuck with me from today. What feeling, what emotion, what conversation, what's still kind of hanging on with me today? And then just be really, really curious about that. Start kind of reflecting, like, why is it hanging on? What stirred up for me? What emotions are there? And then what can I do differently tomorrow? How can I approach the situation differently tomorrow after having this information, right? So a reflective man is also a curious man. He's curious about himself, what's going on inside him. He's curious about other people, the situation, what's best to do here. You know, back to the passage here in Luke where he talks about what king, before he goes against war to another king, how curious does that king get? Where's the troops? How many does he have? What's the lay of the land? Can we afford it? How's our troops? What's our readiness for war? I mean, there's so many questions that come from that, right? Because it's curiosity. Curiosity is key in these situations. Here's a hard one for you. In this situation with my wife, when I was telling her about this story, and she's sitting there doing dishes, after pausing for a little bit and reflecting on it, you know, I asked her, has there been situations where I've made you feel this way? I've made you feel confusion, fear, doubt? And obviously, you know, with relational healing, any times we've been married we're married 19 years now, of course there's instances. And if she's feeling in a good place, like she'll maybe tell me, yeah, when you did this thing, I felt that way, right? That's some really good feedback. Reality is giving you some really good feedback to then adjust accordingly. Ken Nair has this book, Discovering the Mind of a Woman, How to Become an Irresistible Man to Your Wife. And it is not this frilly pie in the sky, bells, you know what I'm saying, like fairy dust and flowers, like marriage book. He gets into some very gut-wrenching, very deep theology about what it means to become a Christ-like husband. And it is one of the most difficult reads you'll ever read. When I first read it years and years and years ago, I threw the book away and I said, that's BS. It's like, there's no way. And I had a really good friend at the time, still is my good friend today, who has really spent a lot of time in this, you know, Christ-like husband, you know, growing in that, and has really mentored me over the years to really just kind of like help understand what that process even means and what it looks like. And Ken Nair has this example in his book where he's describing this, you know, every job teaches reflective, you know, approaching your relationships in this way. And he was like, did you ever get out of the car and your wife slammed the door? Boom, really loud. She just slams the car door. And so What stirred up for you in that moment? Well, when my wife slammed the car door, I felt rejected and I felt attacked. So, his whole approach is rather he's saying, I don't like it when you slam the door in my face. Be open and curious and say, honey, do you feel rejected and attacked when I slam the car door? Because we got to get like super honest with ourselves and our own behaviors. Or another example is like someone doesn't hold the door open for you. You're walking into a store and there's a person in front of you and they walk through and they just let the door swing back and almost hit you in the face. Bam! Well, you feel invisible. You feel disrespected in that moment. So rather than being angry toward that other person, you stop, pause, reflect, and you say, I wonder if I make people feel that way when I don't hold the door open for them. You see how that kind of works? So it's a whole different way of like approaching situations and scenarios. And the whole point is it's not taking responsibility for things that's not yours to take responsibility for, right? You're not responsible for somebody else's actions. That's their responsibility. However, you are responsible for your own actions, and you're responsible for considering the effect your actions are having on another person. Right? That's your responsibility. That's my responsibility. So in these examples of being men who are committed to getting better, who are committed to growing, who are committed to leading better, to be the best man that you can possibly be, the man you are intended to be, it is through these examples of being curious and reflective that our characters are transformed and changed. They're refined, right? And so that way you can show up one day and you can be like, yeah, I used to, right? I used to not hold doors for people, slam doors. I used to break trust. I used to lie. I used to cheat. I used to be an addict. But now right? It's a used to and then a now I story. That shows transformation. That shows growth. So, in conclusion, let's wrap this thing up. This coming week, I want you to decide something. I want you to decide when you wake up in the morning, I want you to consider, am I going to be a bull in the china shop today? Or am I going to be a reflective king? All right? But before I go to war with myself and with the forces out there that are out to get you, sin, evil, are you going to reflect and you're going to consider how your actions and your behaviors are affecting other people and thereby make the changes necessary to continue growing? Right? Or are you going to continue being this bull in the china shop, just walking through life, swinging your tail, slinging crap everywhere, bumping into stuff with your shoulders, shaking your head, knocking stuff over with your horns, a danger and a wreck to everything around you? That's for you to decide. Again, thank you so much for listening to me today. This is episode 10. It's kind of a small milestone, but it's a good one. I'm kind of proud of that. And this is Hands Like Hide. I'm your host, Charlie Pfeiffer. Please like, share, give a 5-star review, subscribe, leave a review on the platforms. It really helps, and let's help get this thing to 100 downloads over the next 90 days. I wish you well. Have an amazing week.